the last two games, game time decisions has turned into, hey, how do we want to see Ohio State get better? And now we're back in the mode of, what do we need to see from Ohio State that we think might decide the football game? Ohio State against Washington on 3:30 on CBS on Saturday. That's 12. They're playing a noon game. Yeah. They're still playing a noon game, man.
Noon 30.
Yeah, but it's still the same concept. You know, it's they're going to play in the afternoon every single time. I'm Steven. That's Stefan. That's Andrew. Andrew, what's going to decide this game? What do you think between Ohio State and the Huskies? What matters the most in deciding who wins this game?
You know, there's so much talk about Damon Williams and how Arvell Reese is going to spy him, and you got to be prepared for the running game. And Matt Patricia calls him Kyler Murray. Like I've said this a couple of times this week. Coleman, the running back for Washington, one of the best in the sport. And like he is kind of in that ballpark with the running backs at Penn State, might be better than them. He's, I don't think, as good as Jeremiah Love at Notre Dame, but he's probably a little bit better than the second guy they have in Jadarian Price. Like you can make a really good case that this guy is like one of those running backs that is at that, you know, top 40 pick level. And if Washington can run on Ohio State's defensive tackles and that interior of the defense, I think it makes the whole operation easier for Washington. Like if we're going to talk about Damon Williams kind of having that first step quickness, getting outside the pocket, it's a lot easier to do that when your defensive tackle rotation is not as strong as you want it to be. If Washington's getting some push up the middle, if Coleman's, you know, racking off 5-6 yards a carry up the middle, I think he's averaging 6.8 yards a carry this year. If he's running it successfully up the middle and Washington is using him successfully up the middle, those linebackers are going to start to bite a little bit because they're going to have to, and they're going to have to try to slow that down, and then it just expands the field for Washington. So there's so much attention on Damon Williams running and how they're going to defend that, and that's not wrong. But I think if Washington can get that ground game going, that's where Ohio State might find itself in some trouble defensively, because then all of a sudden you have to protect against the inside because they're gashing you there. Now Damon Williams has a little bit more room. The edge rushers are going to be already a little bit slowed up in the pass rush, I think, because of how much he can run, and you got the threat of read option stuff like that, RPO stuff like that. So to me, I mean, you got to be strong up the middle, and I think if Ohio State's not, Washington might be able to do some things offensively. So the defensive tackle rotation, Ryan Day talked about consistency when asked about Edric Houston. So we'll see what Edric's got. Caden McDonald, Tywan Malone, Will Smith. What do those guys do?
I think Edric was in the doghouse.
I think he was too.
I think he's out of the doghouse. I think he's going to start on Saturday, and it happens, right? You're a young player, and you're trying to learn, and the penalties, even last year he had a couple of penalties, and so he's still learning, he's still developing. Not everybody's JJ, where they can just be awesome from day one, right? So this is a big game, though, for Edric Houston and Caden McDonald, Caden McDonald's been awesome. Yeah. So this is a big game for the interior. I'm going to go next because I don't know if you're going to steal mine, and I'm scared.
Okay. I just want to say something on the running back real quick. You can read on cleveland.com. I talked to Gary Danielson before this game, and he was talking about what he liked on both sides of the ball, and he compared Coleman to Travion Henderson. So that's something to watch out for. Like, we know how good Travion was last year for Ohio State. He was a second-round pick in the NFL playing for the Patriots. Like, that's the type of talent that we're talking about when it comes to Coleman. So I agree with Andrew that that's going to be a tough challenge for Ohio State to slow him down.
Explosive run incoming, is that what we're saying? Because that's kind of the magic here. And also he's going to put somebody on their butt in the pass pro. That's not going to bode well for me in my outrageous prediction. Ryan Day brought this up during the bye week of the amount of hidden yards they lost in special teams. And that problem wasn't just there against Texas. It's been there for multiple weeks now. Now, Brandon did have a couple of good punt returns the last time they played football, but I'm thinking about some of those drives from the Texas game and where they started from. And that's already a difficult spot to put a brand new starting quarterback in, but at least it was in Columbus, right? So that you're not trying to worry about that while also mitigate the crowd a little bit. If they're giving up empty yards, I think he said like 40 empty yards in that first game. If they're giving up 40 empty yards in this game and Julian Sand and this offense is having to start inside their 20 multiple times and the crowd is into it, that's when I think some of the extracurricular stuff starts to become an impact, because you're constantly starting in bad field position, which means you can't be as aggressive as you want to be, which means your defense is out there and you're putting the defense in bad positions where they have to give Washington good field position. Eventually that's going to bite you. It didn't bite you against Texas. That's because Damon Williams is better than Arch Manning. I think that's the second time I've said that on a video. It's not I'm not wrong. So better quarterback, also playing at home, and without a doubt, the most hostile environment they're going to play in during the regular season. That includes the Michigan game, with all due respect to what that environment is. Bad time to have bad special teams habits. So you got to nip that in the bud. Go catch the ball.
Don't let those routes get squiggly like on college football. Don't let the stadium pulse go high.
Or like the play clock. I guess that disappears now. I hate that so much. I never start young quarterbacks because of that. But seriously, though, like the empty yards thing, I think is an underrated thing of, if you get into halftime, it's like, man, Ohio State keeps starting drives from inside their own 20-yard line. That can become a problem if it feels like this offense can't get into a rhythm because it's spending 40% of its drive just trying to get into quality field position. That's the number one thing I'm looking for is, can they secure the punt? Whether you do something with it afterward or not, whatever. But I do think, I'm almost wondering, I almost asked Caleb Downs this on Wednesday, if like the punt return, like, is he going to be the punt returner? Because we haven't really seen him as the punt returner since the Indiana game. And I think you just need sure hands and a guy you just know is going to do the basic of the job. And I think Caleb Downs might be the best answer from that. Stefan, what do you want to see?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Washington's defense. I know Gillis was talking about Washington's offense, and they're gonna run a lot of man coverage, because that's what they do, right? That's their identity. And Ryan Day said we expect them to mix it in, and maybe they will mix it up more than they typically do. But at the end of the day, if their defensive backs in man coverage can hold up enough, that could give Washington a chance to hang in this game and win this game. The problem is, if Ohio State's receivers, with how talented they are, beating these man coverages nonstop, and they're winning their matchups, and they're getting yards, we talked about it, like, could Washington win this game in a shootout? It's Ohio State's defense is so good that we know that at a certain point, Washington can't keep scoring forever, right? Like we don't see Washington can score. Let's say Washington gets up to 30. I don't know how much more they can get beyond that, let alone the trouble that it's going to be to get to 30. And if that's what they get to, but their secondary isn't holding up, then Ohio State will easily outscore that, right? Ohio State, this is not a great Washington defense, right? As great as their team is and their offense moves, their defense hasn't been spectacular this season, which means there's going to be opportunities for Ohio State to put up points. And I would not be shocked if this is a game where they put up 40, 50 points, because there's just explosive after explosive, because their wide receivers are winning their matchups. So the only way I think Washington can hang in this game is if their defensive backs match up in man coverage against Ohio State's receivers. If they're not up for the task, they're not going to win this game.
I think Ohio State should take the ball first, go down there and score and put some pressure on Washington, because then it'll also take the crowd out of it a little bit. I mean, we saw them do that the entire college football playoff, and then Texas went, no, we're taking the ball first. Yeah. We're not taking that chance of the first time we get the ball, we're already down 7-0, and now we have to score, or we might go down 14-0. Get the text 614-350-3315. It's a 2-week free trial and $3.99 after that. Ohio State and Washington to open up Big Ten play for the Buckeyes on the road in Seattle. We'll be there. Steven, Andrew, Stefan, see you after the game. Go listen to Buckeye Talk wherever you find podcasts. Deuces.